Hey, welcome back to another video where we're going to continue our discussion about money management and building wealth in your life. In the last video, we talked about connecting with money and how it begins with you and your beliefs and your attitudes toward money and understanding what drives those beliefs. Was it how you were raised? The attitude that your parents and your grandparents had toward money, the spending habits that you developed as you perhaps got out of school and started working, those sorts of things. What other experiences have you had in life that have either positively or negatively affected your beliefs about money? And today I want to continue the discussion about money mindset because it really does start with you. Because it's important to understand that you can't change until you desire to change. Part of the problem that we have in life is that many people are both emotionally and financially lazy. And so they just sort of plod along through life, taking life as it comes. And it's not until they reach a point, especially financially, where it's almost too late, where they've dug the hole so deep that they start realizing that they need to change and they need help in the change process. And fortunately or unfortunately, that's where people like me come in, is to help them begin to understand themselves and their behaviors, and then help them design a plan for moving forward and adjusting their attitudes and their behaviors toward money. But what I mean by it's starting with you is that, number one, you have to have a desire to change. You need to get that leverage on yourself where, you're just sick and tired of being sick and tired and broke and dealing with debt and those sorts of things. And you have to be strong in your feelings about not only I need to change, but I need to change right now. And once you make that decision that you need to change, then you have to start looking at the gaps that exist. Gaps emotionally and attitudinally toward money. Gaps in your skill sets as far as your understanding of money, how to manage it, how to increase income, how to reduce expenses, those sorts of things. Then you have to commit to change. You really do. And I suggest to people, when you've gotten to that point where you've had enough, you don't know enough to be able to get exactly where you want to be, is to sit down, grab a piece of paper, and commit to making a change, and then start making a list of the things that you need to learn, the things that you need to understand, or the questions that you have that need to be answered in order for you to begin moving forward. And then develop the attitude that says, I'm going to follow through, I'm going to take baby steps in order to be able to get myself out of whatever situation that I have ultimately created for myself. Another thing we need to talk about is what money is and what money isn't. Number one is, money is not your God. You cannot spend your life worshiping at the altar of money. If you do, you're going to live a miserable life, and it's going to be a real problem for you. Money is not success. So many people think of success in life only in terms of money. There are so many other things. What about having a successful marriage? What about building a successful, loving, caring family? What about building a business that serves hundreds of thousands of people around the world? Those are all things that are success that money may be a part of it, but money is not the main ingredient. And it's really important that we understand that. Back in the mid-1970s, I was very, very fortunate to meet and spend some time with a man named Gary Reasons. Gary was a very wealthy businessman. And in 1975-76, when I first met him, he was making about $100,000 a week. And $100,000 a week is a lot of money now, but back 50 years ago, money was, making $100,000 a week was a real big deal. This guy was really financially successful. But I had coffee with Gary one day, and we were talking about the whole concept of money. And he said, anybody with half a brain today, if they're willing to study a little bit and get out there and work hard, can become financially successful. And he said, by that, I'm not saying that you're going to be in a position where you have enough money to go out and buy the entire world, but you will have enough money to live life comfortably, and the finances will really not be an issue for you. You will have your ongoing expenses taken care of, and you'll be able to do many of the things in life that you want to do. But he said, let me ask you a question. When you reach that point where you're financially free, you don't have any debt, and you can do pretty much what you want to do in life, what is it that gets you out of bed every morning? And he said, my point in saying that is that as you live your life, you must have a purpose that's bigger than money. And he said there's two impacts that has. There are two very important lessons that we can learn from that. Number one is that money is a tool. It's not a god. It's not the end game. It's just a tool. And that if we will focus on something that is greater than money, that is creating a life purpose and working hard to fulfill that purpose and doing it in such a way that it benefits the lives of others, we will be in a position where the money will be there as a result of the efforts that we make. Zig Ziglar said, you can have anything in life that you want if you will just help enough other people get what it is that they want. So when we take our mind off of ourselves, we take our mind off of our own personal finances, and we start living our lives in service and in adding value to other people, then we benefit them, and it comes back to us. And we can't stop it. The flow is going to come back. There's nothing that we can do to stop it. The third thing that we need to talk about today, so we've talked about it starts with you. We've talked about what money is and what it isn't. Now I want to talk about just briefly about learning what you don't know. All of us need to understand the basics of finance. Unfortunately, most schools don't teach that today. I know in our local school system here, the vast majority of kids graduating from high school today can't balance a checkbook, and they can't fill out a basic 1040A simple form for the IRS. And so that tells me that we need to focus on our own financial education, and that's one of the things I do as a coach, is to help people get that financial education so that they can be independent in their own lives and make their own good quality decisions. So we need to understand things like income. Where does income come from? What are the implications of taxes? How do we go about increasing our income if that's what we need to do? We need to learn the whole process of budgeting. And a lot of people will say, oh, budgets, I hate budgets. They don't need to be that onerous. They don't need to be difficult. They don't need to give us that angst that says, ugh, I hate budgets. And they don't need to be the kinds of things that constrain us. If they're created properly, they can help drive us. We need to understand the implication of taxes in making our financial decision, and how do we go about minimizing the taxes that we pay. We need to grasp onto the concept of things like debt reduction. How do we get out of debt? How do we go about prioritizing how we're going to do that and allocating money and that sort of thing. And we need to talk about reducing expenses. We need to look at how do we reduce our expenses. It was, I believe, Benjamin Franklin who said that there are two ways to become wealthy in life. One is to make more money, and the other is to spend less. But the fastest way to become wealthy is to do both at the same time. So can you grasp the concept of reducing the expenses that you have every month, and how do you go about doing that? And then once we've begun to do that, when we started paying down our debt and we've got our expenses under control, then we can begin saving money and we can start building wealth for the future. So we need to develop that mindset toward money that realizes that it starts with us, that we are ultimately responsible. We created the set of circumstances that we're in for the most part. I mean, there are external factors, but a lot of times the people I work with, the circumstances that they're in are ones of their own making. We need to understand what money is and what it isn't, and then we need to start getting a financial education so that we have the ability to understand the interaction between all of these things in our lives. We're going to continue our conversation in the next video, but thanks for watching. God bless you, and I'll see you soon.